Hello. Well, this is what I'm talking about. This is talking about to Spencer, Robert Spencer, and even though I had seen my other video, I don't know if you have seen Embargo Man about Korea might have a Muslim future. The main thing is the contradiction of what you have said in your videos, of what would happen and what else it would be. Well, there is what it is. I have seen it. I have said it. You said it with point, true, and tactic of what it is. I mean, there is such thing that for I might consider another Eastern civilized country is in danger. And one, there is always this controversial thing of this issue between Japan and Korea, most likely, and now what they do, and they're finding their way out, and what it is of those two nations since World War II. They haven't condemned of whether or not are true, who might be the liars, right? In that kind of reasons, the laying court of rocks, or what it means to, I think it might believe it could be a Japanese territory, sort of what it is, and Koreans have stole it with no authority. There is like this confliction of things out there that I might show you what. And what you might say, damn, look, there is a way that they're finding out how to free themselves, how to reveal themselves. Well, you're talking about Sharia. What is Sharia law? What is it? People cutting off heads and stuff, right? This way, what might be of the strength. Two cultures from the Far East. One was controlled and empowered by the Chinese Empire. Then they separated in the Sino-Japanese War. In that battle, around 35-year rule of Korea being under Japanese hands. So now what it is, I could show you what would happen when Korea unifies. I just show you what Korea unifies. So look at these pictures. It is made on Photoshop, and you would believe what will happen when the stage of a unified Korea, both North and South, have their celebrations in a different manner. You have seen it. You have noticed about this. Well, it is what it is. So, the main reason I saw this, and this is because of the YouTube videos back in the 1970s, or back in the 80s, there were I-men coming to Korea, and then they introduced Islam, or whatever it is, their salvation and renegades to be prepared. Prepare to, the only faith that it would lead them to their future. this is more likely, but this is not just South Korea, but there is a mosque and Islam also entered in North Korea from Iran, and then there is would be allowed that the two nations will be together in becoming to Muslimize, Islamized Korea would be like one horror story that there will be a war between Japan and Korea someday, and there will be. There is one thing to do that they only have twisted their history, even though Japan has their fine history, and they have a place of worship that they worship the living and the people that fight for their own country, criticized by Chinese and Koreans. And then this is where it be of a certain person visit this shrine called Yasukuni, even though Spencer, you ever heard of the Yasukuni shrine, is in Japan. It's very sacred to the Japanese people. These people are more peaceful than the Muslims, even though they did their bad faults, but they're more peaceful than the Middle Eastern, like the Jahidas or anything like that, In a way, once the transferring of a new sect of how it is would be the unification, or because it is what it is. It is that from Korea, they have done their bad stuff, but they always have to be in this line where this renegade religious in something, even though have you spoken of the dimness or anything, that what would happen to this? There will be something. There will be a lesson. First of all, about what happened with the beheadings of Sotloff. I know this. The beheadings of James Wright Foley. There it is. What it is. There is this Japanese guy. They said what happened to him. I think he is sent clothes. He is in Korea. He is either North Korea, South Korea, locked up in a mosque, because they are preparing to have the sign of unification and celebration of that nation under the law, following the Quran. If it is kind of shocking to want to do this in this ceremony, it is what it is. They invite an I-man to do this, but the sign is, the first celebration is that Japanese guy who was captured. That is Japanese guy who was captured in Syria, that he is probably might be in Korea. It was for the celebration of something. They wanted the urge to give up the Sea of Japan. They want to urge these, and how these people have converted to Islam. It is now 35 or 40,000 Muslims in South Korea, and North Korea has had its fair share joined together, and they want to follow during their holy book or during the Quran. There are phrases in the Quran, and they want to follow the whole thing. The main thing is that even though I might just thinking of writing a book about it, about Korea or the Hermit Kingdom united under Islam, what would be is this phases of this kind of Islamized and unified and Islamized Korea. What would happen is there will be Japanese victims and an American soldier right there in the North Korea. It's ready, it is to be headed, and it is what it is. They're going to misinterpret that the samurai sword, the katana sword, was actually invented by a Korean Muslim. They're gonna twist the history around and make up the lie. And so they want to interpretate everything that the Japanese has stolen things from Korean Muslims from back then. Put in that way that they want to follow what they want to do. And they're going to have Japanese victims getting killed by their own sword by a Korean Muslim. And this is what I'm talking about. To find out, Spencer, about a mosque and report it to the government of Japan of what it is, or what would they plan to unify Korea, and what is what their children might be. Maybe in South Korea might have dummies, but the guy who was captured by ISIS now has captured. They take them to South Korea, captured right there, enclosed, incarcerated, waiting for the day of his death. Then after that, after the unification of both North Korea and South Korea, they just show you what it is. That's the Prime Minister Shinzo Abe being beheaded, by a samurai sword that Koreans claim that this would be the sword that they chop off heads, going to say they have stolen and incarcerated so many of their own Muslims as what they're going to made up, and what they're going to do is just behead. The war between Japan and Korea will be, the Koreans will be the jihadists. The Japan, like the non-Muslims, would have to fight for Japan and fight for their country. Well, that's not just happening in Japan, but it's also happening here in America. Like the swastikas I see reading in Jewish temples, swastikas and KKK, those are done by same thing. They gonna someday here, jihad is gonna come here, and they will say Allah Akbar after every drive-by shooting, when they kill everybody, when everybody's dead and everybody dies, they'll yell God is great in Arabic so many times. It's gonna be so common in every drive-by shooting. So, and that's what happened. And this would fill in with World War III. In another way, what happened is World War III. But also just remember that this is one thing that when you go to there, probably go to North Korea in a mosque, they are beheading Japanese people. They are beheading, the Japanese victims are all beheaded. Like all the stories that they're kidnapped by North Koreans, they take them to a mosque in North Korea and behead them with the victim's own samurai sword from their own country. And that's a matter of fact is going to be true. Take a video and show them what's going on in North Korea. North Korean beheading Japanese people with Japan's own samurai sword. And what would do that? People getting ready to, when two Koreas unite, they're going to behead the person captured in Syria, right there in Korea. So do this thing, Spencer. Find out, report to the Japanese government. Go to Korea, North Korea, and South Korea, especially North Korea. But South Korea, there it is, having dummies, dummies to be dressed up as the Japanese victims in those mosques. So it is what it is. It's grown. The Islam is growing in Korea in a speed of light, and then you'll find out that what would happen to Japanese victims when the two Koreas unite. Just warn them. Warn the Japanese government what Korean Muslims would do and what Korea have millions of people converting to Islam. Goodbye.